Alright guys, so we're back in my garage, and this week on the B58 Digest, we're going to be talking about two different topics. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is there's a new intake manifold on the market, or that's coming to the market, and it's going to be coming from CSF. So those are the same guys that make the heat exchanger that I installed on my car, and now they're finally, completing the system with an intake manifold replacement as well. So this will be a really nice upgrade for people that are pushing really big boost and want to, prevent any chance of damaging the manifold or breaking the plastic manifold. And it will also have a bigger intercooler inside of the intake manifold. So this is something that should improve our cooling overall. And if you're somebody that does a lot of drag racing or road racing or just pushing a lot of boost and big power, this is something that will help keep your intake temps down. Now, this is something that was just announced, so we're still waiting to get more data on it, but they have posted up a couple pictures on social media, kind of teasing that they have a few out in the wild and a couple different companies are testing it. So we'll just kind of have to keep an eye out to see how they perform on these different Supras that are going to be getting the CSF treatment. Now, from what I can see, the core is a little bit smaller than the other ones that have either been on the market or their designs have been shared. But it does seem like it will have enough space to replace your oil filter without moving the intake manifold. And I don't know how many people realize that, but the intake manifolds on the market currently have to be basically moved out of the way in order to reach the oil filter because it's actually tucked underneath the intake manifold. So it's not really ideal, obviously, for something that you're going to be servicing pretty regularly. You don't want to have to remove your intake manifold or, loosen it to get room to get to your oil filter. And this one looks like you should be able to keep it in place without losing access to your oil filter housing. But of course, we'll see once people start installing it and posting actual reviews how well it works and what the fitment is like, but it does look really promising. The other thing is the price, and unfortunately it doesn't look like it's going to be any cheaper than the other ones on the market just because it's a full billet piece. It's extremely expensive to make, so of course it's going to be expensive to sell. And I don't know how cheap they could even make it, if they wanted to make a budget option while still having the performance benefits that we're looking for. So we're probably right around that range. 4K to 5K is pretty much what it's going to be for the foreseeable future, and any other companies that come out with them, I don't expect it to be much lower than that. But at least it's not a lot higher than the other ones that are on the market, and it does have the design advantage from a service standpoint. You should be able to reach your oil filter without moving it. Now, the other topic, and probably bigger news from a B58 standpoint, is that the new M240i came out. So this is going to be on the G42 chassis. And this was announced by BMW, and they finally posted all of the pictures and everything so that you can see what it will look like finally. So we'll talk about the technical details first, and then, I can comment on how I feel about the car overall. But from a technical standpoint, it's actually very similar to the M340i. And at first I was kind of surprised because, the difference between the 2 Series and 3 Series on the F chassis was pretty significant. And they added more power, but they stripped down a lot of the options that were on the M240 compared to the 3 and 4 Series. And in this case, it's almost completely identical. But it does make sense because they gave the M340 the whole M performance treatment. So when going back and forth between the M240 and M340, there probably shouldn't be a big difference in horsepower and options. But from the information we've gotten so far, it's going to have the same amount of horsepower, the same amount of torque. It's also going to come with the same M Performance limited slip differential standard, which is a big and significant improvement over the older M240i. It's also only available in automatic and only available in xDrive. And they will be adding a rear-wheel drive version in the future, but there will not be a manual transmission option. So for the other guys out there that are hanging on to the 6 speeds, it just proves that we're really stuck with either the M2, M3, or M4. And after these new G80 models go out, I don't know if we'll ever see it again. Now, it's also going to come with a lot of other options like the different park distance control, cameras. The heads-up display is also going to be an option as well. So pretty much everything that was reserved for the 3 and 4 Series on the older models is now across the board. You can get it on the 2 Series as well, which is nice. I know a lot of those things from a daily driver standpoint are really nice to have because you don't want to pay that much for a car and sacrifice on the technology. So it's nice to see at least the BMW is, spreading the love and giving them some nice options. Now they also have a couple different colors that are offered now. A big one that they've been sharing everywhere is that purple. It's called Thunder Night Metallic. So I definitely expect to see people picking that one, especially, if you want a color that just stands out a little bit without having to pay a lot of extra money for an actual, individual color. So they have all of the dimensions between the 230i and 240i, which again are pretty much the same car. So any differences I would say are attributed either to, the engine or the drivetrain. And so the first one that I noticed is that the M240i stands up higher, which indicates they're making the xDrive cars taller. So I'm guessing anybody that gets one of the first M240i's are going to be looking for some way to lower it, because if it looks like it's on stilts, it's just going to be a little funny looking. These are just specs that they've published, so hopefully it's accurate to the production models, but the assumption is that it's coming straight from BMW, so you can pretty much take it for truth. It's also going to be a very heavy car. They're posting the curb rate of the xDrive car at 3871 pounds, so almost 3,900 pounds, which is an insane amount of weight. But again, all the extra technology and things that they're putting into the car will add on to that. So you get some nice features, but it's probably going to be a little bit slower and handle a little bit worse due to the extra weight. And then they're going to be offering it with 19-inch wheels. I do think this is probably a car that you want to drop down to 18s, but the 19s will look good. I just think that 18s are better from a performance aspect for sure, and typically look a little better, especially on a smaller coupe. Now, from a look standpoint, there's probably not much of a surprise in how I feel. Pretty much all BMW owners don't like the new generation when it comes out. And I'm not really a big fan of the looks. I think they made a big upgrade going to the current 2 Series in proportions and shape and everything, and this is kind of a step back. They're going back to kind of the stubby look. It's not quite as uniform, and the front end and the rear just don't really match, in my opinion. I couldn't quite place what I felt like was wrong with the front end, and it just looks a little more pedestrian, but I realized, and somebody reminded me, that it doesn't have the halos, so it almost doesn't even look like a BMW. It just looks like any other car, and that's something that we've come to be really accustomed to with the brand. So it's kind of disappointing that they did away with that, but I think overall, the car will perform well. Some of the performance options that they've posted will help dress it up a little bit when you put some carbon fiber on the car, but I think you still want to start with a good shape. And currently, in my opinion, the M340 kind of has the best cohesive design language overall. It's not too crazy, but it still looks aggressive, especially, the back of the car. The bumpers have a nice aggressive styling, and the taillights are really distinctive at night. But the 2 Series and the 4 Series, even though I'm a coupe guy, I'm not totally sold on them yet. So we'll see. Maybe they'll grow on me as time goes on. But for now, I'm pretty much just hoping the LCI models come pretty quickly. But yeah, that's exciting for people that were waiting for, a smaller B58 car. Although it's not, much lighter, it's still going to make a lot more power and have a lot of tuning potential in the future. Once the DMEs are unlocked, everything will cascade down from the other B58 engines, and the 6-port Supras, all of them are going to have the same B58. So I expect a lot of aftermarket support for this car. And as soon as people get their hands on it and start getting serious about it, it'll start setting some record times. So hopefully we see some great performance out of it to make up for the looks that all of us aren't totally in love with yet. And yeah, we'll see how it goes. So that's what I have for you guys this week. Let me know if there are any other topics that you want me to touch on down in the comments. And as always, a big thanks to all of the sponsors and partners that are helping me out with my personal build. I'm constantly making videos about my 440i, so feel free to check those out and check out all of the people that help me. They're all listed down in the description. So if you're looking for any mods for your B58, definitely check them out and let them know I sent you. So I hope this video helps. And if you have any other questions or comments, leave them down below. Thanks.